the central government to push 3 agriculture-related bills in Parliament has led to a huge political storm. The 3 bills we're talking about are already, in a sense, in play because they have been pushed through as ordinances and are now cleared from the Lok Sabha as bills. They will now head to the Rajya Sabha for the next stage. The question is, what are these bills and why are they so controversial? First up, let's tell you about the bills. These are the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Ordinance 2020, Farmers Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill 2020, and Essential Commodities Amendment Bill 2020. The government claims that these bills will free the farmers from all of the restrictions that they currently face. They will be able to sell what they produce anywhere to anyone at the price they so see fit. Meanwhile, agricultural activists and farmers and opposition members in some states are saying that this is an attempt to attack federal cooperatism because now the center has more control over these farmers and what they produce rather than the state. The state can't levy the mandi taxes they could. And secondly, farmers could now could fall prey to large corporates who will decide that they want to buy their produce at whatever rate they want to. What is the truth of the matter? We'll get to the politics of it in a bit, but I think it's very important first to understand what the entire issue is all about. And for this, I have 2 of the best agricultural economists and agricultural experts that you can think of in India today. I want to welcome Mr. Ashok Gulati, agri economist who's also a member of the task force on agriculture set up by the Prime Minister, as well as Siraj Hussain, former agricultural secretary. Welcome to both of you and thank you for speaking with us today. Mr. Gulati, let me begin by getting your take. You've backed these bills to the hilt. You've said it will usher in reform. We've seen the fallout. A union minister has quit from the Shiromani Akali Dal. You've had huge farmer protests and sit-in. Is it as simple as, farmers being misled by the opposition and not understanding that this is all for their own good?
Well, there are 2 parts of this. One is the politics part, which we can discuss. But first, let us come to what is the economic part in these bills. If you are liberating a system which was more or less straight-jacketed, it was a monopoly that if I want to buy something from the farmer, I don't have to come to the mandi system and have to pay high fee and taxes and cess and all that, which increased the intermediation cost and made our produce less competitive. So the processors, the exporters would not like to, if it was 2%, 3%, good enough. But if it is 8%, and earlier it used to be 14.5% in certain states, then what are you doing? It's the commodity which the poorest of the poor have to consume, basic agricultural commodities. I think that system, that monopolized system is being challenged by an alternative source which is creating competition. I remember the days when I was in the government and we had a system that every bureaucrat, and even that system exists today, every bureaucrat must fly Indian Airlines. Now, even if you are getting a much cheaper ticket from other airlines and you want to fly by that, no, you can't. You have to go by this expensive flight. This is how the system of APMC market is. So if there is an alternative given to you, if you want to sell in the mandi, please keep on going. Nobody is abolishing the mandi system. But if you are given an alternative, and particularly the processors, the exporters, the organized retailers, their margins have to be seen if they are looking at a bigger scale of market and exports. I commend the government that this is a big step. To me, it is like delicensing the industry in 1991. Now, in case of agriculture production, there are no restrictions. The restrictions are on the marketing and that all these years of economic reforms, uh, nobody had the guts. Vajpayee Saab started off in 2003, an attempt to reform the agriculture marketing system through a model agriculture marketing act, but did not go far enough because many states were doing their own things. And so this COVID gave an opportunity. It was a crisis because you wanted to avoid rush in the mandis. So you said, okay, we suspend it for some time. And then they found that system to be better off, the alternative that you can go directly to the farmer and buy whatever
Yeah.
price is ready to offer to you. So to me, a crisis has been turned into an opportunity for change, and the years down the line, 3 years, 5 years down the line, you will see hopefully a major change. We can discuss what the politics of it is and why some states are
No, but
abolished that.
Mr. Gulati, may I ask you?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. No, may I ask you, okay, let me put the opposition parties, the exporters, the retailers, the traders, the commission agents all on one side. You're saying they possibly have a vested interest, and maybe they do. Why are the farmers so unhappy and fearful then? Why is there a fear that this means that the wheat and rice they procure may not find buyers at, the MSP which has been promised to them so far? Why is there a fear that small and medium farmers will fall prey to contract farming, where they will not have the devices to strike a good deal with top corporates? Are you saying that farmers have not understood this? That's why they're coming out in large numbers to protest?
Well, that large number is primarily in Punjab, and the government there is also opposing. So it's not a pure farming community that you can. The fear has been created deliberately. A misinformation campaign has been created that the MSP system will be abolished. Now, nowhere the bill says that. Not at all. And this will keep on. MSP of wheat and rice will go on for 10 years, 15 years. I may have different views on that because Punjab and Haryana are depleting their water table by excessive production and free power of rice cultivation and so on and so forth. But that's altogether a different matter. The bills nowhere say that the MSP system will be abolished. So it's a pure misinformation campaign. Now, small farmers, they will be exploited. If the big farmers are aware, small farmers are also aware where to sell and what not to sell. But individual a processor will not go to an individual farmer to do a contract farming. They would like to have an aggregation point. And you have to look these legal changes along with the other organizational and structural changes. Prime Minister announced 10,000 new FPOs, farmer producer organizations. NABARD and SFAC are supposed to be building that. It's a start of a journey. The way we did in milk revolution, we created milk cooperatives. And then there was an infrastructure for that collection. And the milk coolers were set up there. It is a similar structure that will be set up, and fruits and vegetables particularly look forward towards a direct, between the farmer and the processor, or between the farmer and the exporter, or even organized retailers. They need to tie up, bypassing the mandi system.
Right.
It's a successful revolution, the white revolution, but it did not happen. In case of milk, small farmers who are even selling 1 liter, they get about 70 to 80% of what the consumer pays. In case of fruits and vegetables, they are getting only 30%, 33% because of the mandi system. Over to you.
Okay. I want to just hear Siraj Hussain's perspective on this. Mr. Hussain, how do you look at it? Is it this black and white, that this is a fantastic set of changes to the agricultural sector, and it is just poor farmers being misled into believing that this is harmful for them?
Tamanna, I do not think there is a very clear black and white answer to this. However, I must say that so far the MSP system has benefited only the farmers of paddy and wheat in northwest India and cotton and groundnut farmers in western India, and lately some farmers of pulses and oilseeds. So this agitation right now is basically coming from Punjab and Haryana, because a very large quantity of wheat and paddy is procured by the government agencies in a very short window of 2 to 3 weeks. So what happens is that some 80,000 crores a year is paid to the farmers as MSP within a period of about 1 month for wheat and about 3 weeks for rice. So what the farmers are fearing is that if the MSP system is curtailed or abolished, as they fear, then the market prices will fall. And they fear that instead of 80,000 crores, they may be able to realize only about 65,000 crores. So that is the fear which is haunting them. Now, the government of India is saying that MSP system is not going to be changed. So that's it. The government of India has to convince the farmers and the state governments that it is not going to change. My worry is that CAG Saab, the Comptroller and Accountant General of India, will ask the FCI and other procuring agencies, why did you pay these taxes when you could have procured outside mandis? So if the government of India is serious that MSP system will not be changed, then I think it has to issue a clarification that procurement from within mandis will be allowed and FCI will continue to pay the APMC charges.
Mr. Gulati, do you want to add on to that point about this particular clarification on whether the APMCs, they're technically allowed to function, but if you open up everything else and remove the biggest buyer, which is the government essentially, from the equation, then will they really exist?
Yes, they will exist and they need to compete. Why the government should be paying? Earlier, they were paying 14.5% on top of MSP to the state and the commission agents. After GST reforms, it is still 8.5% in Punjab. Why? This type of intermediation cost, putting cess and all the burden, because the central government is a sort of a hostage. They have a public distribution system and they can't run it without procurement from Punjab and Haryana. And Punjab and Haryana take full advantage of that and put more and more taxes and cess and whatever you can give it a term. I remember those days when we had discussed that no state should have more than 3% or 4%, including the commission agent, the commissioner. What is commission agent's role here? Government is buying, buy directly from the farmer. Why they need to pay 2.5% to the commission agent? It's a massive rip-off, I would say, of the central government by the state governments. So when you create another alternative competing mechanism, then APMCs will have to rationalize all these taxes and fees and whatnot and bring them down, which will be good for the country. I feel nowhere in the country for any commodity. You look at Azadpur market, but 2 minutes auction, he gets 6% commission. What for? What is his job? It's a rent-seeking exercise going on in APMC markets.
Now, Mr. Yes. No, Mr. Hussain, I just want to get, your perspective on two more points that have been raised. One is that will this cause any kind of a threat to food security? Because the government does this procurement and then it goes to the neediest in the country through the public distribution system. The second part is that if you're allowing contract farming and you're saying that, now there will be a written agreement between farmers, you can effectively have large corporates come in and deal directly with farmers. Will farmers be able to make sure they're not exploited? These are two concerns that I want you to highlight and talk about.
Okay, so Tamanna, as far as the ordinance and now the bill regarding contract farming is concerned, I do not see much changes in the near term. This is a voluntary exercise which enables the farmers to enter into a contract if they want it. We have seen that it has been successful in case of poultry. Such contractual system has been successful for production of seeds. So depending on the requirement of the industry and the price it wants to pay to farmers for better quality, consistent quality, the farmers will enter into an agreement. I do not think the contract farming getting a big share in the entire production of agricultural commodities in the near future. So let us not spend too much time on that. As far as the impact on food security is concerned, I do not think that farmers will start growing less or it will impact the food security in any manner. In fact, since we study these things in some detail, the food security is guaranteed only as far as wheat and rice is concerned. We are deficient in pulses. From time to time, we have to import pulses. We are heavily deficient in case of oil seeds. So what has happened is that because of policies like free electricity and MSP to some extent in northwestern part of India, many regions grow paddy, which is not really ideal for that particular ecological system. So it is possible that in these regions also, farmers may switch to other crops which are less water guzzling. So a change is needed, and I think we have not discussed it because the ordinance does not cover sugarcane, but sugarcane is also in need of reform. So for sugarcane, these ordinances and these bills have nothing. Farmers will continue to be as if nothing has happened.
Tell me about one more aspect, because all of the list of concerns, I want to tick them off and get clarity on it. Mr. Gulati, I'll come to you on this. The other sort of concern is that this attacks the spirit of cooperative federalism. Agriculture is a state subject. States play a very important role in procuring, necessities and agricultural produce and then distributing it as they need. And this seems like you're sort of cutting them out of the fray or minimizing their role.
There is some weight in this argument, because all these years it was considered that agriculture is a state subject, but interstate thing has to come under the central part, and yes, it would have been great if the central government had taken all other states on board, like the GST. In fact, as I said earlier, Mr. Vajpayee's time in 2003, this is exactly what the idea was, that other states should do this. So if you want to do it as negotiations, 5 years negotiation, good enough, good luck to you. But was the 1991 reforms, the big economic liberalization reform, done after consulting all the states and stakeholders? This is how sometimes a crisis opens a window for reform, and wiser people take advantage of that. This is what my take on it is. Ideally, even 1991 reforms, if today Congress is opposing this bill, then they should also oppose that 1991 reforms were in the wrong direction. It was all a sellout to the corporates, and small players were all wiped out or whatever. This is like a little Bombay club, which is making a little opposition as they did in 1991. So to me, well, ideally they should have taken all the states on board, but that doesn't happen, and therefore this window of opportunity, they took advantage of it, and I'm pretty happy for that.
All right, I don't know about the Bombay Club, but here in Mumbai, we're just trying to understand what is happening with this very crucial story in the simplest way possible for our viewers. Mr. Hussain, you want to come in on the question of center-state relations and how much control now states will have to cede over what is happening with farmers?
Actually, this discussion has been going on for at least 2 decades. And the center has been trying to persuade the state governments to reform their APMC laws and contract laws, etc. But somehow the center was not able to persuade even the states which were governed by the same ruling party. So, for example, the BJP government, which has been ruling since 2014, has not been able to persuade even the states ruled by its own party. And therefore, the center used the list 3 of the 7th schedule of the constitution, where it says that trade and commerce in the production and supply and distribution of foodstuffs is in the concurrent list. And therefore, I think the center had no alternative but to do it. And as far as I know, it has not been challenged in any court of law by any state government, which shows that the states are not confident that the center's ordinances and now the bills contravene the constitution. But I'm not sure what has happened in the high courts, but as far as my information goes, no state government has challenged it. Some APMCs, etc. seem to have challenged the ordinances, but not the state governments.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Hussain and Mr. Gulati, for speaking with us and explaining this particular aspect of what really is in these bills and why these concerns are being raised and whether they are valid.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
We'll take a very short break at this point. When we come back, the focus shifts to IPL. The India Premier League starts from tomorrow against all odds in the middle of a pandemic and ensconced in a security bubble. How will it all work out? And does the IPL and the business it generates look different this year? That discussion coming.